I'm John Furrier with theCUBE. Here at our NYSE CUBE studios, of course, we have our Palo Alto city connecting Silicon Valley and Wall Street. This is the Transformation Edge, a C-Suite Reinvention Series hosted by theCUBE and IBM. Guest here, Jim Kavanaugh, CFO of IBM, kicking off session one, Reinvention of the Enterprise, the CFO Edge. Jim, thanks for coming into our studio.
Very excited to be here, John. Looking forward to the great discussion.
It's quiet here, the market's closed, busy day in the green, so market feels good. But the ongoing role of the C-suite has changed with AI, and this series is going to talk about the transformation edge that senior leaders will have as they look at their business models. And as CFO, you've been very aggressive, very proactive, intentional about your strategies in your company as CFO. So I guess my first question is, as we look at the AI opportunity, the role of the CFO is taking on a bigger and more cross-functional position in its role. What is the role of the CFO these days? And let's talk about that.
Well, great place to start, just given what's happening with, I always say one word and how you define this economy we're operating in, and that is dynamic. Dynamic from a CFO perspective is a very challenging environment, but a very opportunistic environment. And I should have started. I've had the privilege of being the IBM CFO for 9 years now. I'm coming up on almost the longest standing tenured CFO of IBM in a 115-year history. But I have seen a dramatic shift in the role definition of what a CFO plays here today. And I use terminology, and allow me here a minute, that a traditional CFO role, I call a guardian of stability. When I entered the role, that was the predominant role definition and leadership characteristic style. What does that mean? That means what you would expect: fiduciary responsibilities, balance sheet preservation, liquidity management. I like to say controllership of risk. Today's CFO is fundamentally different. I like to call it, you have to be an agent of transformation. Because what is a role of a CFO? Role of a CFO is you have to be focused on creating long-term sustainable competitive advantage and value creation. And underneath that, John, you might ask, well, what does agent of transformation mean? What is the day in the life of a CFO? And I would tell you, it's a fundamentally different mindset. And I put it in 3 buckets. Number one, and this is how I try to drive our organization in IBM. One, a CFO has to have strategic vision. What does that mean? Source of new growth, source of new opportunities, source of new value creation. Strategic vision about where this market is going and how you can compete and win. Second, you got to be able to enable business model innovation. That means portfolio optimization, capital allocation. That means how you build moats, how you leverage ecosystems, partnerships, platform-based models. And it's also how do you drive enterprise productivity to free up financial flexibility to invest. And the third, very important, is organizational agility. How do you enable an organization to operate with speed, with velocity, to create value in long-term competitive advantage? So at its core, I like to say business acumen. What does that mean? Translate strategy and execution, insight into action, technology into value. That's what we try to do at IBM.
You know, and the times have changed. We're seeing velocity as a very key word. Another key word that comes out in these events and the coverage of theCUBE is unification.
Yep.
And when you look at velocity and unification, you also have technology disruption. And the role of the CFO is instrumenting the business model, the company. I mean, it's the numbers. It's like the architect who draws the building up before they build it.
Yep.
But you got to have the business strategy matching the financial strategy. Okay, I learned that in business school, it's common sense. Apply that to AI, because now AI is driving a lot of opportunities. I'm sure there's a lot of debates inside IBM. You guys have successfully transformed, if you look at just the performance of IBM, just by the numbers, really strong. I mean, Arvind, his North Star from day one, hybrid cloud, the strategy, not a lot of, no zigzags. I mean, so now as the CFO, your job is to instrument that, build the architecture, and then execute. So take us through, okay, how that operates in the world of AI. How does it work? Well, who's involved? multiple
Absolutely.
stakeholders. It's
Absolutely.
not just run spreadsheets and do earnings.
No, not at all. Like we said, the changing role of that CFO, I like to say the CFO today sits at the epicenter of how you run the company. How do you bridge, to your point, the strategic vision at IBM? It's a hybrid cloud AI, quantum-based, high-value innovation technology company. How do you bridge that to the financial investment thesis to our shareholders overall? The interlock of that is the operating model, and that's where the CFO has to spend his or her time overall. But I would tell you, John, I've learned over the years, there's been a handful of what I would call characteristics in an AI era that define leadership CFOs. And I'm always watching people, and what drives me is intellectual curiosity.
Yeah.
I think learning and education are indispensable around, and to drive professional growth is what drives me overall. But a couple things just allow me to talk about what I've seen, to the heart of your question, in this today about AI. One, a CFO has to move from a functional partner, which was what the traditional was, to a re-architect of the vision of a company. Great CFOs that are able to co-architect with the CEO as that partner, the AI vision, strategy, and business model, I will tell you they will shape markets and they will create new sources of value. Second, you have to move out of pure financial management, your point about literacy of financial management, and how do you create enterprise value? That is what's the most important role of a CFO: capital allocation, portfolio optimization, enterprise productivity to free up investment capability. That defines leadership roles in CFO. Third, might surprise you a little, get out of the auspice of controllership or control or risk aversion into how do you take prudent, smart risk, and how do you create a performance organization. And that is today AI governance. Why? Because the CFO's got to be at the core of that. How do you scale, mature, get value realization, and get ROI out of your business overall? And finally, inside IBM, we've been changing the operating model, led by a CFO overall, of how we get away from siloed models into integrated intelligence. How do you capitalize on 280,000 IBMers around 175 countries on that stated purpose and mission of hybrid cloud and AI from Arvind, so that everyone understands their purpose, mission? That requires leveraging data centricity. That requires us creating data into insight and value. That requires us to take technology and create value out of it. So it's a very, you can tell, it's a very exciting time for a CFO.
Yeah, I really love your vision because you mentioned speed. The old expression for the big companies was they move like an aircraft carrier. They got to make a turn. We should operate more like a battleship, be faster. And also the market's changed. And one thing we've seen with the success here at the NYSE with theCUBE and their NYSE Wired program is that technology and capital markets and finance are now intersecting because technology is the market. And I know you play football, you mentioned that, so Vince Lombardi had that famous quote, judge someone's success by the field that they play on, or something to that effect. Yes. Meaning, some people don't even know what game they're playing.
Absolutely.
Talk about that dynamic, because if you don't know what you're playing,
yes.
Okay, and if you got to have capital markets, you got to have that finance, you got to have that growth capital, you got to have the technology. Technology plays a huge role. So my question for you is, as a CFO at IBM and to other CFOs that are watching, what game are you playing? How do you determine that? And then how do you leverage the technology? Because we're seeing AI infused in every single business. Yeah. It's not just the tech stocks.
Absolutely.
Every company is a tech stock now.
Every company.
So
every
share your vision on this, because I think what you got right at IBM, my opinion, is you married technology not as a thing, but as a constant.
Absolutely. It is the core essence of our cultural DNA and how we built this great company and how we've continuously reinvented it for 115 years. But let's take a step back. IBM sits at the intersection of technology and business value creation, right? We're an enterprise, high value innovation provider. But what has technology been for over a century? Technology has always been a source of competitive advantage. Technology enables you to gain scale, to drive enterprise productivity and efficiency, that then frees up financial flexibility to go invest in new areas. But technology even today is going through a massive inflection shift with Gen AI. Technology is going to create new markets, new businesses, new industries. So this inflection shift of AI that is influencing worlds, economies, industries, to your point, and let's be honest, society at large. The interesting thing about that is you look at studies from BCG, McKinsey, Bain, you pick up any of them. There's going to be trillions of dollars of value creation out of technology around AI. But unlike other technological inflection shifts that have happened over the last 100 years, only about 1/5 of that is productivity. Yep. 4/5 of that is going to be new markets, new businesses, new sources of revenue, new sources of competitive advantage. So companies like IBM, and I would argue every industry, to your question, have to figure out what is the future of the enterprise? What is the future of work? Where is your source of competitive advantage, and how do you leverage technology to disrupt or to capitalize on your moats, your incumbency positions, and your platforms to go scale? Within IBM, you and I talked a little bit about my I framework.
Yeah.
Let me use this as an
let's explain that. It's a great use case.
Let me use this as an explanation. As we were embarking, and by the way, we've been investing in AI for decades now, right? The explosion became a scale of inflection at ChatGPT at the end of 2022, but we've been investing in AI for decades overall. Now we had to figure out inside IBM, one, we provide a technology stack of commercialization of AI, everything from models to data to platforms to our agents and systems to orchestrate, as you know quite well. We also provide a consulting advisory practice to help clients go scale it. But we had to figure out inside IBM, how do you mobilize 280,000 people around the world about what AI means to our purpose, to our mission, and how we capitalize on that. And out of that, we created this I framework. What is it? Many people would understand for decades the normal T-shape skills and development learning. I believe in the I framework, the STEM is deep domain. Domain knowledge, whether that's supply chain, finance, HR, legal, you name it. Domain knowledge is always going to be required because it's how you fundamentally run a company. The top part, read it, the stems, the branches off of that is technology. These two are infusing together. The bottom, which I think is the differentiator, is what I love to call, back to my athletic analogies prior to getting on the show here, is principled leadership, inspired followership, ownership mentality, the systemic thinking, grit, growth mindset. How we take this I framework and mobilize 280,000 people about how we can enable and drive that within our client base to help clients scale AI, implement AI, and get value realization out of AI. We're doing that inside IBM. We're disrupting ourselves, so that's what's becoming exciting.
And by the way, that I framework, I would say I can point to 2 examples I covered personally, 3 examples, including IBM, but the 2 other non-IBM examples would be Amazon Web Services. They had first principles on their vision, working backwards, et cetera, but they were horizontally scalable and domain specific, the apps. NVIDIA is another one. They just recently talked about being horizontal, but having domain specific AI, libraries, et cetera. This idea of domain experts is the common thread, that the value of technology, okay, is horizontal, or in your case, the stem of the I.
Yes.
And the domain drives it all. I mean, the technology I meant, the domain is there. The role, talk about how you see that, because now with AI, with coding, humans getting augmented with intelligence, the velocity's coming in super fast. I was just coding on Claude Code this morning, not to admit what I do in the morning. You got oatmeal for breakfast. I was coding an app with voice prompts.
Yes.
So coding's going to be, I won't say commoditized, but it's going to be just general purpose. But the unique knowledge of the individuals are the superpower. Talk about that role have used in AI specifically, because there's a lot of debates around, I'm afraid of AI, but people love AI. Some people say, master AI for your next job. What's your view on this? Because I think AI is going to drive human intelligence with assistance.
Yes.
How do you see that? And how do you talk about that to your employees and your staff?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something I have a very strong point of view on this, right? One, this is going to be the most powerful inflection shift that I've seen, let me personalize it, in my career around the agentic AI era. Around that, John, comes an important responsibility for companies, for worlds, for economies, for industries, to ensure that we responsibly and ethically scale this technology in the most proper manner for common good about how we get value and how we get the leverage of what technology is. Inside IBM, my point of view is we are not going to operate in a world of AI plus. We are going to operate in a world of plus AI. To use your terminology, the human and the digital synergistically working together is going to be the world that we're going to operate in. Artificial intelligence combined with augmented intelligence at the end of the day. So I always tell our organization that risk is not the enemy around understanding what technology can do and the capability of technology. Mm-hmm. It's uncertainty without insight in getting involved and capitalizing on that for your own personal advantage and for company advantage and for world and society advantage overall. So within IBM, what we've done, I talk about the triangle. So we talked about the I a little while ago, from a learning and a development, and by the way, that's how we develop, skill, train all of our people on the I. Within IBM, we pride ourselves around a triangle. We are a differentiated information technology company. You understand us well. We're the only integrated provider that brings a technology stack around hybrid cloud and AI, everything from the model layer of infrastructure through the orchestration layer, through the agent layer, through the assistant layer, through a consulting business at scale to go drive adoption. So tech stack, consulting business at scale to help companies, because to your point, I think behind your question, I could tell you from pure experience running all of the operations inside of IBM in addition to my CFO role, deploying AI and getting value realization and scale is very difficult.
I mean, the operating leverage on technology is with domain expertise is off the charts.
Absolutely. And that value realization depends on data architecture, but it depends on the core of your question. How do you optimize intelligent workflows on how you run a company? Mm-hmm. So the third part of this triangle, we've branded Client Zero. We're very proud of that. How do we mobilize 280,000 people about leveraging our technology? And oh, by the way, we're hybrid, so we leverage third-party technology to reinvent and reimagine how do you run a company. So I've got finance people sitting at the table. We just had 2 sessions today with clients about articulating how we're leveraging technology to get that operating leverage and scale inside IBM to reinvent the way we're actually doing business.
You bring up a good point, and this gets to our last topic around identifying opportunities in the industry for CFOs out there, and it's a big one. In some markets, when they're mature, you can be a supplier, you can hire people that have requisite knowledge, proficiency. But if you're in AI and you don't know AI, you can't provide service. You can't provide the consulting, you can't have the products. So Client Zero is your version of reinventing IBM before someone else reinvents it for you, AKA a competitor.
In a very experiential way. Yes.
And so that brings up, I think, it's a use case, it's a template for other CFOs. What is the playbook? How do you talk about how to recognize opportunities outside of the normal, hold down the fort, be a guardian of the numbers? How do you identify those value creation opportunities? Because when you have value creation, you have value capture.
Yes.
What's that playbook? What's your vision on that? Because that's the billion-dollar question for CFOs is that, hey, the moment is here. We've crossed the threshold with AI.
Absolutely.
What's your vision on that?
Great pace to kind of go full circle to this interview where we started with the role of the CFO and now concluding with the core of how does this, what did I say earlier? CFO's role is how do you create long-term sustainable competitive advantage and value creation, right? When we go back to what we talked about up front, which I think was very engaging, I talked about this agent of transformation. Yeah. I talked about strategic vision. I talked about business model innovation. I talked about organizational agility. I'm probably going to surprise you here a little, but I talk to CFOs all the time, great peer network. I think the biggest risk for a CFO is optimizing for stability. And that means solely trying to protect earnings and short-term performance. A CFO's role is how do you compound enterprise value? And there are many roles within that. Inherent in that is smart risk-taking. It's scaling new technologies like AI. How do you differentiate and disrupt yourself right before someone else does and create new sources of competitive advantage? It's driving enterprise productivity. It's accelerating the strategy. We talked earlier, speed, velocity. Hey, time to market is advantageous and it creates first mover advantage. There's a premium and a multiple to that. But underneath it, what are a couple ways that I always talk to CFOs? One, let's start with the most easiest discussion because every CFO thinks, which is correct, most important role is capital allocation. I always say that's where value is won or lost, right?
Give an example.
I'll give you an example. We got into the 115-year history of IBM. We got into trouble when we missed markets. We were deploying capital in many fragmented ways, and we couldn't optimize where we were making that capital investment bet to where we thought the market was actually going to go at the end of the day. Flip side.
Back to your smart bets.
Exactly, smart bets, smart risk bets. On the flip side, on the positive side, I was on the job 3 months. We took the largest software acquisition in the history of the industry, Red Hat, to our board to strategically pivot this company, right? So I'll come back to that point in a minute. But capital allocation, that's where value is won or lost. If you can build, and that's the beauty with Arvind about you talked earlier about the focus of IBM, hybrid cloud and AI. If you can align and concentrate your capital allocation where it aligns with strategic fit, synergistic value, with obviously an attractive financial profile, you can create significant value. Yeah. And as a CFO, I always talk about a flywheel, a value creation flywheel. We drive, and it's a mindset, we drive a productivity, maniacal productivity in this company. We've taken out $7 billion over the last 5 years, $4.5 billion over the last 2.5 years. Why is that important? Every dollar of productivity at our capital structure creates $3.5 of financial flexibility. Think of how much firepower of growth differentiation you could create. The second thing and the last thing, I'll wrap up with you, and this might surprise you too. I come with a different mindset. I always tell Arvind from day one, prior to even Arvind becoming the CEO, because Arvind was the architect behind Red Hat when he ran software. I have always viewed how do you leverage the balance sheet and use debt strategically. Many traditional CFOs would focus on balance sheet, capital structure, liquidity, extremely important. But you know how this industry runs, risk reward, right? Yeah. Back to the Red Hat example, right? We have, over the last 5 years under Arvind's leadership, we've doubled our organic R&D. We've acquired 70 companies in addition to Red Hat over the last 6 years. Yeah. That levered up about $25 billion. It almost doubled our debt. That $25 billion lever up of debt, we created over $200 billion of enterprise value.
Yeah.
So
I remember that. I wrote a blog post on that, so I love this acquisition. In fact, I interviewed Arvind when he was running that division, talking about hybrid cloud. It's notable that Arvind saw hybrid way early.
Oh, absolutely.
Way early.
When no one was talking about it.
No one was really thinking about it strategically.
You go back to your article, our investor announcement of Red Hat acquisition was predicated on three things. One, that there was going to be a tighter integration of hybrid cloud and AI. This is 2018.
Yeah.
Second, that the world was going to be multi-cloud. 73% of Fortune 1000 companies run multiple clouds in their enterprise, right? And third, workloads were going to be optimized in multiple environments. Public cloud, private cloud, on-prem, and now reality all the way to the edge. I think when you look at the market from 2018 to today, it's kind of...
Well, you and Arvind are a great team, and I give you props because I remember we were covering it closely because we were in the front lines on that. That was a very strong move, accurate, great bet for IBM, so congratulations. Final question, that psychology, that mindset, is not all CFOs have that, so it's learning. Most people, even in the tech industry, whether they're young or have a career, don't have a systems mindset. They're like, okay, ship the app, we're done, put it in the SaaS store, how's the revenue? The systems mindset, the business model, transformation mindset, I think CFOs have a system mindset, so I won't say they don't, but most CFOs don't have a comfort level with ambiguity around, well, prove it, can we model that out? So some of these strategic bets are risky,
yes,
because where there's risk, there's reward.
Absolutely.
You just hedge it out, it's okay. When you talk to CFOs, what's the comfort barrier to break or change to be open or aligning with the notion that, hey, I'm going to look at this bet with AI and this business model. It may not be baked. Let chaos reign in the chaos. Andy Grove's favorite phrase. Yeah. I say it all the time on theCUBE. That's a lot of gray area. Yeah. You can't nail everything down.
Absolutely.
You got to leap to hope the parachute opens. Well, how do you talk to that mindset? What is the right mindset to be a good CFO?
Yeah, I was blessed with the privilege to step out of finance prior to the CFO role by the board of directors of IBM. And I became the first ever chief transformation officer of IBM when, let's be honest, we fell into a classic innovator's dilemma where we missed the whole shift to public cloud. Now, I will tell you, we didn't miss it that we weren't investing in it and we weren't building. We missed it.
Good domain expertise.
Yeah, we missed it on a classic innovator's dilemma because we had significant incumbency, moat positions with on-prem, legacy, hardware, software, middleware, and we didn't understand the rate and pace and adoption. Stepping out into that transformational role expanded the professional knowledge of how a business acumen, a business leader, taking what we said earlier, the strategic vision of a company, you got to have a why. What is that? You used the word North Star. What is that North Star? Arvind had that North Star. What is the financial investment thesis and does it create value? Then most importantly, how do you bring that together with an operating model discipline, a business model discipline to go capitalize on that? All of that underpin, don't forget we're a human capital-based business. Culture,
Jim,
leadership.
Great conversation. This is session 1 of Reinventing the Enterprise, the Transformation Edge. We're going to do a lot more of these. Final point to end the session is teamwork is huge. You know the value of teamwork.
Absolutely.
Talk about why the team alignment and why teamwork and how teamwork works. What does success look like and the importance of teamwork?
Yeah. Well, I've been well documented and known inside IBM and publicly that the HR community does not like me too well because I despise the term manager. I love the word leadership. I study it, I believe in it. our earlier discussion about the applicability of athletics and professional, I would say personal, as a father of 5. I think, what are leaders there for? Leaders are here to provide a platform for our IBMers. The power, the brand of what this great company is about is to provide a platform for them to grow, to develop, to create value, to make a difference in the world. Arvind, since he came in, he repurposed the mission statement of the company. Pretty ambitious to be, this is 2020, right before COVID, to be the catalyst that makes the world work better. Pretty ambitious for a technology company enterprise. Now, how do you mobilize? How do you engage 280,000 people? How do you let them personalize? What does it mean for them in that purpose and mission statement? And then how do you provide that platform for them to grow and develop? And to me, that's my approach, that's my leadership style.
Jim, thank you so much. Make the world better with AI. It goes faster with more intelligence, not just personal, but business and society all working together. Thanks for taking the time to come on theCUBE, be part of the series.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
You. I'm John Furrier, the Transformation Edge, that is the focus, that's the edge, execution. The strategy's clear, AI is part of it. Now execution is going to require all new ways to operate, and the workforce, the team, the leadership. Stay tuned here with theCUBE for more. Thanks for watching.